Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about why you cannot win by listening to the mind. So, the mind is always going to be looking for problems, and then it's always going to present you with a solution. So, the mind is going to notice a little muffin top, or that you've gained a few pounds, or it's going to notice this wrinkle, or it's going to notice what I see as maybe some kind of like freckles on my face, and it's going to call it a problem. And then it's going to search really hard to find a solution to the problem. So it's going to find a diet plan, it's going to look up some cream or some face treatment or whatever the case may be. And if you fulfill that solution, the mind is going to be satisfied. It's going to say, good, done. And then what's going to happen? It's going to look for the next problem. So either maybe the original problem, the fix, didn't really last long because frankly, it probably wasn't supposed to. And it comes back and now you have the problem again. So you never win by listening to the mind. You only ever get temporary moments of relief or satisfaction. And that's the payoff, right? So it's like getting a little hit of feeling good. And so we listen to the mind because we say, well, I got it before. I felt good before when I did this. So there's got to be another way that I can get this again. But it just keeps going like this. It's like being in a closed loop circuit. It just keeps going around. Problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution. And for most people, they may think that's just how it is. When you're only listening to the mind, when you think that the only place you really can listen to is the mind, which is the thoughts that are going on in your head, then yeah, that's how life is and that's how things look. But the thing is that the mind is not the only place to look. In fact, there's a much better place to look. And that is what I call inner wisdom, what can be called intuition, a knowing, a sense, a feeling of inspiration, of something that just feels like the thing that you want to do right now, that feels the most exciting or the most appealing. It comes from this deeper place. It can appear in the mind, so it just kind of pops into the mind, but I find that it's more like kind of arises up versus being kind of living in here and coming down. Like that's kind of how I notice it, is that the mind is like coming down, but this other form of knowledge and intelligence and wisdom comes from up into the top. And the feeling is also different. So there's a difference in quality between the mind and the deeper wisdom. The mind is usually constrictive, worrying, stressed, when that thinking is repetitive. Otherwise, these solutions or these inspirations that come from within and come up feel a little bit clearer. There's sort of like a pop. It's just like you kind of know. They have a feeling of more openness or expansiveness, tends to feel better. We tend to get that information all the time. In fact, information is always being served to us every day and every moment from this place. But the mind, which is essentially like a computer that's been programmed with information from the outside. So information from our family, from our culture, just people who are prominent in our lives, it's like just got programmed. And so it's only ever giving us stuff that it heard from somebody else, that is linked to this sense of protection and survival, because the mind also is linked to our survival instinct. That's why it kind of feels a bit frantic and serious and worrying. So we can kind of sense into what are these two different places where we're getting this information from. And so the mind, if we listen to that and we listen to the thoughts, it's always going to be driving us a little crazy. It's always going to be like from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. If you've noticed, it doesn't shut up. At least my mind doesn't shut up. It's always talking. But we can actually learn how to identify what's going on up here and start to kind of train ourselves to listen to what's in here. And one of the key pieces is to realize that we are okay and that we're safe and that we're good enough in every given moment. And then that is true, but it's only the mind that would tell us different. So I like to use this example. If you could imagine that for a moment you had no thought in your head, you heard nothing coming from your mind, what is it that feels like the best, most logical, most kind thing to do for yourself in that moment? That's going to come from up here. So that deeper wisdom will arise and we can listen to it when we're not caught listening to this mind. Now that, wisdom will come up and then usually the mind will refute it, or it will squash it away or push it away or say, no, this is the truth. What I find is what comes from the mind, anything that has attention to it or feels worried is not something that I actually can trust. Because I'm always okay right now. I'm always safe. It's only the thought from the mind that would tell me otherwise. If I didn't have a thought in my mind, the default would be, I'm okay and I'm good and everything's fine. And what's the thing that makes most the sense for me to do right now? That will just be there. It will just come up. So the mind that's always telling us a different diet, telling us how much to eat, worrying about this, worrying about that, it will never be satisfied. So if we listen to it and we follow it, we'll be satisfied for a moment, but then the next thing will happen and then that's the rest of our lives. So there's a different place to draw wisdom from. There's a different place that we can listen. That requires that we understand what's going on with the mind. And over time, when we start to, again, practice and retrain ourselves to learn to listen to and trust what's coming from within. So if you want to go down that road and you'd like to stop listening to what's going up here, try something different and listen maybe to what's going on in here or what's coming up. There's two different things that I do to help with that. Number one is my free weekly meditation group. So you can sign up for that. If you're on Instagram, it's in the link in my bio. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll link it below. It's on my website. And then another one is my webinars, Understanding Your Thinking and Understanding Your Feelings, which is really key, where I go into a lot more detail into this and I give some exercises, is a lot more key in helping to be able to differentiate what am I listening to? Am I listening to the mind or am I listening to deeper intelligence? So those, again, are both linked on Instagram and the link in my bio. I'll link them in YouTube if you're watching this on Facebook. I got the link there. If you have any questions, comments, want to share your own experience, pop them in the comment section.